chance I was going to get this job. Waiting for change doesn't work.
Science sisters, they're here to talk.
Someone might let me drive a spacecraft.
Things that you may
really important.
know
That's
nothing
been
about.
a long and a strange journey. No matter how
There's
mildly I
myself.
say something,
Oh,
it
yeah,
will be
she's
perceived
your
as confrontational. Woohoo, space!
Science sisters, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Science Sisters. I'm your host, Iris van Zelst, and today I am in Birmingham to have a chat with Leah Nani Alcancel. Leah is a spacecraft engineer and a lecturer in aerospace engineering at the University of Birmingham. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Yeah. So one of the main topics that we wanted to talk about, you're a lecturer now, you're in academia. But you haven't always been in academia, and I think there were also some points that you were very keen to not be in academia. And also how you got into the aerospace engineering, because when I was looking it up, I think I found that you did a PhD at the University of California, San Diego, but I think it was in chemistry, which is not aerospace engineering.
Not even close. I wasn't even thinking about aerospace engineering.
Exactly. So what happened in between?
So, yes, quite a lot. You know, most of my career, in fact, because I've only been a lecturer since August of 2020, so it's only just coming up on a year now since I started. It's been very exciting. Physics was my original plan when I first started university, but unfortunately, the first physics course that I had as an undergraduate in my first year, there were 53 students in my class, and 2 of them were women, and my lecturer was male, and not particularly interested in making us feel welcome or comfortable or even in learning very much. So it was not a brilliant experience, and I had a much better experience in my chemistry class, where I had a wonderful lecturer who absolutely loved his subject and blew something up every Friday. What more enticement do you need when you're 17?
That sounds very exciting.
One of the nice things about the American university system is it's actually quite easy to switch majors without having to repeat a year or anything like that. A lot of what you study in the natural sciences or in the physical sciences is common across different subjects.
Makes sense.
So I was able to swap very easily into chemistry for my second year. And then I discovered a field called physical chemistry, which I've never heard of before, and it brought together all the bits of chemistry that I like and all the bits of physics that I liked, and it was perfect. So I started doing an undergraduate project in physical chemistry in my third year with a wonderful woman called Hannah Reisler. Yeah, she was an excellent mentor. By the time I was in my fourth year and writing up my undergraduate dissertation, I started to feel like I was maybe beginning to become a proper scientist. I was looking for jobs, and I went to Hannah and I said, these all look really boring. What can I do that's not boring? And Hannah said to me, well, did you ever think about doing a PhD? And I said, no, what's involved in that? So I really didn't know. And, you know, some of this is just my background, because my family were excited that I was going to university at all. They didn't really care what I studied. I mean, I am from an immigrant background as well, so there was a little bit of, you'll be a doctor, a scientist, or a lawyer. Right. These are the choices. Right? Fortunately, I was already interested in science, so I didn't get pushed that hard. But I think they very much saw it as I would do my undergraduate degree, and then after that I would get a job, a well-paying job, and start a family and have a nice life. They didn't really see it going any further than that, so I was never pushed to go further with my education. So it hadn't occurred to me that that was an option. And she was super helpful. She introduced me to a bunch of people that she thought I might work well with to have as PhD supervisors, and I ended up taking a PhD with one of the people she recommended to me, who was my mentor at University of California, San Diego. And he was a white man, but you know, that doesn't stop someone from being inclusive, which is really wonderful. And at the time, the field that he still works in, chemical dynamics, was extremely male dominated. The first conference I ever went to, I think there were something like 200 people at it, and 10 of us were women. One was, in addition to me, was his postdoc. It was the first postdoc that I ever worked with, one of my early career role models. He made a real effort at a time when there were still relatively few women doing that particular type of experimental chemistry. He made a real effort to have a group that was gender balanced, and it must have taken him a fair amount of his effort to do that. He really did spend time trying to recruit a diverse cohort, and I think that was the first time, like for me, that I'd actually seen someone doing that, putting in that work. I kind of didn't look back after that. That became one of my criteria for working with people. I wouldn't necessarily ask it overtly at interview, but I would certainly want to know what the composition of the group that I was going to join was before before I agreed to it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something that happened to you as well.
Well, in the research groups that I've been in, they were fairly balanced. During my PhD and now also at DLR, where I will go to work, it's mostly been women. And actually during my PhD, I was very fortunate. My daily supervisor was a woman. All my collaborations and all the PhDs and postdocs that I worked with were women. And we actually have quite a few papers that are completely authored by women. This is like one of my proud achievements in geophysics.
That's amazing. I've never had that. so I've just found a new aspiration, I think.
I think it's a good idea to ask about the group.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily only from a gender balance perspective or a background perspective, but yeah, interest, would you fit in with them? Just, you know, ultimately you're going to work there for a few years, so it's nice if you kind of get along with those people. But I really like that your professor, I guess, was really the one driving it, because that's obviously a lot of these women in science, EDI issues, a lot of the younger generation postdocs and PhDs are pushing that, while not necessarily all the established people want to join in, while really it also needs to come from them if we want to gain some momentum.
Yeah, the people who hold the power, who hold the cards, have to buy in. Waiting for change doesn't work. It's an effortful thing. It's not a natural sit back and wait for it to happen thing.
And also that it's valuable to have a diverse group, because some people will say, well, you know, I do find the best people and they just all happen to be blonde, blue-eyed males whom I happen to be friends with.
Yes. One of the big problems is, for instance, when you attend a conference on or a session at a conference on EDI, the people who've chosen to attend that session have already got the message.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have the answers for
Yeah,
that one, unfortunately.
Apparently, we both kind of consider ourselves as persons of color, mixed race people and backgrounds. So have you ever noticed that in a less than positive way at work?
I mean, certainly not. I don't know if you found this, but certainly not overtly. People make comments about your name being difficult to pronounce, or maybe gently mocking it in some way. I don't know if you've had that, but certainly that's one thing that I've had.
My name is very Dutch. So
Yes, that's true.
So your name is also part Hawaiian, Filipino?
It's Hawaiian and Filipino, yeah. So my first name is Leonani, which is very Hawaiian. So you actually probably meet other Leonanis if you ever went to Hawaii, but I certainly haven't met any outside. And then my surname is Filipino, but it's not a common Filipino surname. So a lot of people just haven't got a clue how to pronounce it.
I mean, nor do I. So how do you pronounce it?
Alcancel. Yeah. And so I have had people make kind of slightly off-color comments to me about my name or stuff like that. You know how you can tell when people are trying to guess what your ethnic background is, but they don't want to ask?
Yes.
And so you end up dancing around this particular subject. You're like, do we have to talk about this? Because this is really not the point of this, this particular meeting or this conversation. So I think one of the things that I've sort of learned is how to deflect that and go, look, that's not why we're here. Can we just, change the subject back to what we're supposed to be talking about? Because I'm not really comfortable discussing my identity with you. So
fair.
Yeah. The answer to your original question, which was if you experienced it in less than positive ways. Yeah. And I don't think nearly as badly as, say, a person who is visibly Black or African American would experience it. But, it's certainly not some of the negative assumptions that would get made. I would say I've had more assumptions made based on me being female or dressed in a particular way than I have on my color. And some of that is just, because I'm pretty fair-skinned. Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of, for me anyway, of kind of learning how to take unwanted interest in my ethnic background and turn it away. And, that varies very much depending on the context and depending on the person asking. In particular, when it comes from someone who is roughly equivalent to you, or a student, or anything like that. In certain contexts, it's relatively easy to just go, really rather not talk about that right now. It becomes more difficult when it's someone who is vastly senior to you or in a position of power. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how I might have dealt with that. Probably badly. Probably either I just capitulated and explained where I was from, where my parents were from.
I mean, I think in a lot of cases, what I experienced, you just kind of freeze and just, did that really happen? Or,
yes. And it really annoys me that it should fall on our shoulders to have to, think through and deal with this stuff. Because really it should be the people who don't have to feel these impacts all the time who do the legwork, but a lot of them don't. One of the things for me is finding allies is really important, particularly supportive white male allies. has always been kind of a key element of learning to deal with any work situation. You have these individual experiences, but if it starts to build up a pattern of some kind, or you repeatedly experience something, then that's when I think you can kind of go, for me anyway, when I will go to one of my allies and say, look, there's this thing, and it's been happening repeatedly, and it really bothers me, and it's affecting my ability to do X, Y, and Z. Do you think you could have a quiet word with person Y? That is usually pretty effective, because hearing it from the white male usually is far more effective than if I tried to deal with it myself. No matter how mildly I say something, it will be perceived as confrontational. I think that's probably the main thing I've learned, is that you can't win. And it is unfortunate, it shouldn't be like that, and it does make me mad. But there is a workaround. It takes a lot more time and effort to set up, but it is effective.
So how did you get from physical chemistry?
Yeah, I haven't really answered that question, have I? I got from physical chemistry to aerospace engineering. That's been a long and a strange journey. So my postdoc was at NASA. Obviously people hear that and they just think, whoa, space! But I was doing atmospheric science at the Jet Propulsion Lab. Not a big part of what the Jet Propulsion Lab does.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's about 90% space science and about 10% earth science. The thing about the Jet Propulsion Lab is there is one canteen, a very big one. Lots of people go to it. So a lot of the people that I ended up meeting in there, they were all mission engineers or mission operations people, or
very cool.
Yeah, or electrical engineers, or technicians or whatever. So I would go and visit their labs and I'd see what they were doing, and I saw the Spirit and the Opportunity rovers being tested, and kind of once you've seen that, you're a bit sort of, I mean, I could stay in a basement lab my whole life. Or maybe someone might let me drive a spacecraft. When I started looking for my next job, I had already at that point kind of gone, I don't think I want to go into academia. It can be, for a lot of people, a long wait for a train that doesn't come.
I like that.
You get people who do postdocs, repeated postdocs for 3, 4, 5, 6, and suddenly it's become 15 years and you still don't have a permanent job. And I knew that's not what I wanted to be doing for the next 15 years. So I looked for an engineering job. I ended up getting the one at Imperial because my partner at the time was being transferred from the LA office to the London office. And so he kind of went, well, do you want to do this? Obviously this is quite career changing for you, and I mean life changing for us, but also career changing for you as well, possibly in a way you don't want. And I said, no, that's fine. Let's do it. Found the job at Imperial, which was really finding a needle in a haystack, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I applied for the job and I got it, which was also very cool.
Weren't you, coming from a physical chemistry background, afraid that you wouldn't get the job or wouldn't be qualified or wouldn't be able to do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I thought there was no chance I was going to get this job. I was applying for lots of other stuff as well. It's not like I immediately went into that job either. When I moved from LA to London, I did a lot of other stuff in the middle. I worked briefly at a recruitment consultancy. I took jobs because I needed to pay the bills.
Yeah.
I kind of chucked in an application at this job at Imperial and thought, well, chances are very slim, but I'll go for it anyway. And I got invited to interview, to my great shock. I was pleased about that. It was a very interesting interview because one of the things that they did, they put some magnetometer data from Cluster in front of me. And they said, what do you think this is? I said, well, there's X, B, Y, B, Z. I think this is the variance or something underneath it. So very good, very good. And why do you think there are 4 traces on it? Well, there's 4 spacecraft, aren't there? Yes, very good. They were trying to walk me through recognizing that what was in the data. And what they showed me was uncalibrated data from the spinning spacecraft, so that it still had a spin signature in it. Then they asked me some questions about how you change coordinate systems to despin the data. And because I had been working in chemical dynamics, and one of the things that you have to do is to translate from the lab frame of your measurements to the center of mass frame of your measurements, I said, oh, well, that would be a coordinate transformation similar to this. And I kind of sketched it out. Then they seemed extremely pleased. That was something I was really not expecting, to be able to see that the maths that I'd applied in my work in physical chemistry would actually help me to understand how to calibrate a magnetometer. I think that was what got me the job, actually, was kind of making that connection between the coordinate transformation systems. That was one thing. And also just being able to look at the data and kind of go, I think I know what this means.
Cool. And And then you were an engineer.
Yeah, and then I was an engineer. Yeah, so very abruptly after that, suddenly I was a spacecraft engineer.
So Cluster is a space mission to
study the Earth's magnetic field. So
study
the magnetosphere.
That makes sense. But you also have been doing Cassini, right?
Yes.
Which is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In orbit around Saturn. So the reason why I have had experience with so many different missions is because what the lab I worked in specialized in is building a specific type of payload instrument.
Oh.
So they build magnetometers, and magnetometers measure magnetic fields to high degrees of precision. Each of these planetary missions will probably have a magnetometer on board. It's one of the essential things, quantities that you need to measure. But every time you build one, you're building it for different conditions.
Yeah.
Also, it gives you the opportunity to work in a lot of different engineering roles, because my roles on Cluster, Cassini, and JUICE were all totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So my role on Cluster is calibrating and archiving the magnetometer data. So making sure that it's clean, removing any anomalies. And then my role on Cassini was operations engineer. So that's on the other side, where you're actually telling the spacecraft what to do. So when it's your team's turn to drive it, you get to write the commands for it. That was a very cool job.
Pretty cool, yeah. So back on track. You were a very happy spacecraft engineer at Imperial College London, and now you're a lecturer in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Back in academia.
Yeah.
Yay.
After having sworn that I would never go back.
Exactly. Here you are.
Yeah, here I am. While I was at Imperial, my personal life changed quite a bit. My husband and I bought a house together, and he got a permanent job at Birmingham. I loved my job. I loved being a spacecraft engineer. I didn't want to stop. So I negotiated flexible working. They allowed me to work from home a few days a week, and then I would come down to London and work for a few days a week. I did that for 6 years, and during that 6 years, I had 2 children. It became kind of clear to me that it was really, really exhausting trying to keep up that commuting schedule and raise 2 children. I also have a partner who was working full-time in an academic career. It just came a point where I went, I'm going to have to stop working in London. I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm just tired of being tired all the time. I looked for a job in Birmingham, managed to find one at the university. I was pleased about that, so I took it. It was not this job. It was not working in aerospace engineering. It was doing research support, so helping people write their grant proposals, because I'd done a fair amount of that when I was at Imperial. Yeah, so I was doing that when, I don't know how much of that story I should tell.
I don't know. A series of very improbable events.
Yes, it was a series of highly improbable events that kind of led me to learn of the existence of the aerospace course, which was very new in Birmingham. It only started in 2018. And then to be asked if I was interested in teaching on it, actually getting a job teaching on it. It was quite a journey coming back to academia. I mean, I guess I haven't worked a lot outside of academia. I mean, because of being at Imperial and then being at the University of Birmingham, I can't claim to be a rank outsider to the workings of academia, but as a non-academic, you are considered a member of professional services staff, whether you have a highly technical role like a spacecraft engineer or a role like the one I had in helping with grant preparation. It is not something I expected, was to come back into academia, and it was actually kind of a difficult choice, because I knew that it was going to be life-changing in quite a number of ways. Not only the type of work I was doing was going to change dramatically, because I was going to be teaching students again, so actually taking that on was quite a big decision.
Yeah.
It is, and I don't think there are too many academics who would disagree with this. It is more than a full-time job. It is. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep thinking about it, and that doesn't stop at the weekends. So it may seem an odd thing to do, to say I was really tired from all that commuting, so I decided to not work in London, and then to take a job where actually I'm going to now work at the weekends as well. But in many ways, it's much easier to balance, I think. I don't know. I don't know how to explain why one would do that. Other than, I really love teaching, and I love interacting with students, and I love telling them about space.
This was a very interesting chat. I think we've discussed a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Probably too many things. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point. Who knows how long it has been going on for you. Could be very long. If you look in the description, there will be some links to some things we've discussed and a link to Leah. I will see you in the next episode of Science Sisters. Bye! Bye! It's not at all going to rain any minute.
No.
I
also helped write and wrote myself unsuccessful grant proposals, which is an experience I think we've probably all had at some point in our careers. I'm told it's character building. Started talking about all the technical details. We really need just more space missions.